Hey, this is Dino. Today I want to show you how to use an Apigee API product or developer app to shape the response that's coming back from an upstream system. I get this question from a lot of different customers. They've got upstream services that return a whole bunch of data, but what they would like to do is curate that data or shape that data differently for different requesting clients. So rather than having the client directly access that service, they'll have the client access the service through a facade, an API proxy running in Apigee, and then they want per client data shaping. How can we do that? Well, Apigee is well suited for that. Apigee has a concept of an API product and a developer app, and those are entities inside Apigee on which you can hang metadata, including data about what fields, perhaps, the client is authorized to see or wants to see. And I've got an API proxy to show you today that demonstrates this. So first, let me turn on a trace session, and I'm just going to show you what I really mean. So the basis for this demonstration is an information service from Amadeus that returns information about airports near a particular city. So Apigee is essentially acting as a facade on top of that service, and this is what the data looks like in just passing the response that we get from Amadeus back through Apigee unchanged. And what we would like to be able to do, as you can see, there's some metadata here, and then regular data, which is an array of JSONs referring to airports. So we've got Seattle's airport, we've got Lake Union Airport, there's a Boeing Field Airport, so 3 different airports there. And it's possible that clients either are not authorized to see all this information or don't want to see all this information. Maybe it's a thinner client. It doesn't want to deal with sending all this data over the broad network. So that's the pass-through. Shaping it for the client, we might see something different. So it's the same basic data. We've stripped off the metadata, and now we're sending in a subset of those fields in each one of the arrayed items. That's for client 1. Maybe I've got a second app or a second client, and it gets a different shape of the data. Or maybe I'm not using the client-based metadata at all. I'm using metadata associated to the API product in Apigee. And again, we can have yet another shape of the data that gets sent back to the client. So how does this work? Well, we've got an API proxy, and here's the trace session. Let me just show you how the proxy is structured. There are really 3 conditional flows. There's as I said, a pass-through, and then 2 different flows that shape the response. One based on the developer app, metadata strung off the developer app, and a second flow that shapes the response similarly, but with metadata that's associated to the API product. In all cases, the target endpoint is the Amadeus service. And that you can see the information about that here. If you go to developers.amadeus.com, click into the self-service APIs, you can see information on hotels, on air. The one I was using was airport and city search. It's in there, and it's the get locations. So this is the thing that I'm invoking from within Apigee. This is not an open API. You need to be authorized. So in order to use this, you're going to have to register and then sign in, get yourself an app, which gives you an API key and secret, and then you'll provision Apigee with those things in order to allow the Apigee proxy to invoke Amadeus. Okay, so 3 flows, all doing a verify API key, just to verify the client credentials, and then 2 of the flows are shaping or filtering the fields in the response, one based on the client, one based on the API product. And we can see the effect of that here in this trace session. This is the pass-through where we do the verify API key. This set of policies here is just getting a token for Amadeus so that we can invoke the back end. That's not super important for our purposes, but here we're invoking, the proxy is invoking the backend, and you can see the full payload here, and we're just passing that back to the client unchanged. In the second request, we do similarly, verify the API key and then invoke the backend. You can see the full response content, and then here's the metadata that I spoke of that is hung off the client. What the API proxy is doing at runtime, it is retrieving that information and then applying that to shape the data in its response. And then here's a different client doing similarly, so different metadata associated to that client and a different shape of the response data. And then finally, this case, we are shaping the data according to the metadata on the API product. So very similar mechanism, just different place to hang the metadata. Where is that stuff? Let's look at apps inside our Apigee organization. So here's one of the response shaping apps. Really, this is the thing that has a client ID and secret. And here's the metadata. Here's the data. And I just attached it as a custom attribute on the app. And each app might have a different custom attribute. So that's a place to hang the metadata. This app is authorized to use this API product. And if I just click into that API product, I'll see that there's also a place to attach metadata to that as custom attributes. So which one you use, metadata attached to the API product or metadata attached to the developer app, it's up to you. Depends on how you want to do the customization, but Apigee is very flexible in that regard. So that's what it looks like, and that gives you a nice general capability for shaping JSON data coming back from upstream systems. Some more good news. This is available in a GitHub repo, so you can do this yourself in your own organization. There's the repo URL, and let me show you what that looks like. I should be able to, let's see, should be able to git clone this thing, and then cd into tools, npm install, cd into tools, npm install, and then here I've got a provision script that will provision my organization with all of the artifacts necessary in order to exercise this demonstration yourself. So really nice. And this is the command that you would use in order to provision. This is just a Node.js script that invokes the administrative API for Apigee in order to set up key value maps, import the required API proxy, deploy it, and then create the API product, the developer, and the various developer apps. And then you get the client ID, and you can invoke it just the same way that I invoked mine, and you should see the same kinds of results with the filtering set up just as I've shown. To tear down this example, just run the provision script with -r for reset, and it will delete all the assets that it previously provisioned in your organization, returning it to normal. Okay, so that's it for now. I hope I've shared with you something new. I hope you learned something new. This is interesting capability inside Apigee Edge. Nice way to use Apigee Edge to tune the response that comes back from your upstream services in a custom way for each different developer app or API product. All right, take care.